are live. Another episode of Strictly Sports podcast coming at you guys live. We've been doing this for about the live shows, I think, for about 4 weeks now. And we've been doing the overall podcast since the beginning of the NFL season. So we will be continuing it through the NFL season and then kind of see where we want to go after that. But before we do that, we are going to wrap up what was a pretty good NFL season. I mean, obviously there's some asterisks and stuff like that could be attributed to it, depending on how you look at it with injuries and COVID and stuff. But let's talk about some things that happened this week with the Washington football team and the Philadelphia Eagles. And Dan, I'm going to kind of let you set the stage for that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of controversy coming out of that game. Obviously, Giants fans are not happy. The rest of the NFC East is probably kind of just laughing about the troll job of Doug Peterson on the Giants. And, you know, for me as a fan, as an Eagles fan, I was sitting there on Sunday night watching the game, like wanting my team to go out there and destroy, like, you know, go out there and win against the Redskins. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, knowing that the right thing for them to do and the most beneficial thing for them to do would be to lose, was to lose that game. And so a lot of people were, very upset and thought that Doug Peterson had disrespected kind of the spirit of the game by what he did. But I think he went into the game with kind of knowing, he already said what he was going to kind of do. I think in some regards, what happened in this game is that the team that came out of the NFC East was so terrible that even when the Eagles sat almost their entire team on the bench and brought in a third-string quarterback, they almost still beat the division winner in the NFC East. And so in a lot of ways, I'm not sitting here today feeling like Doug Peterson disrespected the nature of the game so much. I'm more just embarrassed by what the NFC East is going to be showing in the playoffs on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, Dan, so do you think you went on there, but you didn't really say, do you think they lost the game on purpose at the end? Or that he would have rather lost the game so he put cell phone in hopes that they would lose the game?
I think that he had no intention of I don't think that he thought he would win the game.
What do you think, man?
No, I don't. I think that he had a plan. I think that he had a plan, and I think that Nate Sudfeld played uncharacteristically bad. And I think that if any talking head would go back and look at Nate Sudfeld in the preseason, you could have never expected him to look that terrible.
Okay, so you don't think WP put him in there to lose the game?
No.
You believe that he really just wanted to get him some playing time in the last quarter when they had a chance to win?
Yeah, I think that Doug P feels the need, and this is the problem with Wentz too, why he let him in there for so long. He has an emotional attachment to his players, which makes him do certain things. That just makes everybody else really angry.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Because, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm in a coach's head or an organization's head and know that, yes, there's no question they lost the game on purpose. Because it's conceivable that you would want to get a young quarterback some reps. But my thing is this, and I said it before. Why at that moment did Nate Sudfeld need to go in the fourth quarter? It's the fourth quarter. The best he's going to get is 3 series, maybe 4 at max. You know, it's minimum 1 or 2. So you thought like 3 or 4 series in the last minute in that game against Washington was going to like give you some look at Nate Sudfeld where you would get a different opinion on him as to like, yeah, this guy could be something in our future, whether it's like a good solid backup or God forbid, even a guy that maybe we'd try to build around because maybe Wentz isn't going to happen.
I don't think it had anything to do with thinking he could be the future quarterback. I think it had to do with if he goes out there and shows something on tape, maybe we can get something for him.
Okay, maybe that. But, I mean, there's also something to be said that maybe you see enough to say, hey, this guy could be our back. We like him enough to be our back. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, whatever the reasons are, they are. But my thing is, you're not going to really see enough in 3 series in a fourth quarter to really glean that type of information from him. So to me, it's odd. I think Doug saw the opportunity late in the game where, okay, maybe they didn't go out and think about it beforehand, like we're going to go out to lose. But, you know, the opportunity arose. He knew in his head we could jump up 3 picks to lose. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because the 4 of us were joking before the game, like, would the Eagles lose on purpose to spite Dallas? Because we all assumed Dallas would beat the Giants, and then, of course, they don't. And you assume Philly would want to screw Dallas more than they would the Giants. But we all kind of laughed in tongue-in-cheek that, like, no team would ever go out there and lose just to spite another team, especially when the other team benefiting is in your division still anyway. So I don't buy that. But I do think a team would lose to get a higher pick and to get to go up 3 picks. So I'm not going to sit here and criticize and say because they're 3 picks higher now. So
you know what? Do you know what the equivalent of like those 3 picks are? Like I was looking at it today, and like there's like the value chart out there, which we're not going to get into, but essentially by losing, the Eagles got the value of a 2nd-round pick, which is what somebody would need to do from go to 9 to 6 in the draft.
Right. I mean, it can be significant. 3 picks could get you the quarterback you want. It could get you any player that's 3. I mean, it gives you basically you get to pick your 6th best prospect instead of the 9th best prospect, depending on what the draft class is. That could be huge, or it could be more minimal. Whatever it, But so I get it. That's fine. If that's what they really wanted to do, I don't like tanking. I don't want my team to tank. I don't believe in tanking. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that creates culture. We were talking about it with the Dolphins last year when everyone thought they were tanking. And look what happened. They weren't really tanking. They created something at the end of the year. And look what they did this year. They really built on that. So I think there's something to be said for going out there and building a culture of we play to win and we play to win all the time.
I think what's interesting.
See a team, to me, if they were tanking, again, I would assume they probably, in some ways, he saw the opportunity at the end of the game and said, I'd rather not lose this game. Let's put Sudfield in for that. I don't believe he needed to see something from Sudfield in 1 quarter that was going to do something. I don't believe that. If he was going to do that, he would have just played him the whole game.
I agree.
I think he saw the opportunity and said, let's put him in. We'll probably lose if we put him in. And then that's how it looks. So maybe he didn't. I'm not going to sit here and say I know. Like, a lot of the talking heads, like you're saying, Dan, they just swear they know. I don't know. It's an opinion. And if they were, I don't rip them for it. It's kind of different because usually you see a team tank, you see it as like a whole season or extended period of time tanking. You don't usually see like 1 game or the end of a game a team look like they're trying to lose to get just jump a couple picks as opposed to doing it the whole year to get the number 1 pick. So that was odd, but I don't.
It's just suspect timing, man.
I don't have
They had the luxury of knowing exactly how it would affect them because everybody knew at that point they would know exactly where they'd fall, whether they won or lost, since it was the last game of the season.
And maybe that's it. And so it's just unusual to see that. And then also the 2 NFC East games, they both ended, like we were talking about the end of the Giants game. It was such an NFC East ending. You had one team almost fumble away the game when all I had to do was fall down after we get the first down and almost lose the game, but then they recovered the fumble and they got lucky. And then you have the Eagles do this. It was like a perfect ending to a disgrace of a division all year long.
Right.
And I'm just upset that any team
was bad.
From the East.
Well, the thing that I wanted to say, just kind of like to close out the argument on this, is if you watched Philadelphia play all year long, to think that they could be better than what they were, even with Nate Sudfeld, is wishful thinking.
That's why it wasn't true, man. I think they weren't trying to win the game.
Like, I just think they're that bad.
Yeah, they are. And I think that to Trav's point, like, I don't mind if that's what you want to do. If you want to lose because you want a better draft pick, that's fine. But don't go out there and more for your players in the locker room who are giving it all and trying to win a game to say, we're doing everything we can. I coach to win the game. Bull crap.
Right, but Aggie, but to that point, because I was with you too, I was thinking, like, just don't BS us. But then it's like, who's really going to stand up in a press conference and be like, yeah, we tanked, we lost for sure? No one says that. You just can't.
You don't have to say it that way. I'm sure you could say it a little bit differently. You can say we felt like we wanted to make some different decisions there for some different looks.
But that's kind of what he said. Other than we played to win. And then he added.
But I mean, how do you look at guys in the eye though that prepped all week for that game and were giving it all practice and you know what I mean? Guys like Jason Kelsey, guys like that they've already spoken out and said, I don't want to lose games.
As we're closing out that segment because we're way over time on that, I will say this, that the guy that I feel the most bad for is Jalen Hurts because he's out there trying to prove that he can be the starter, and they took him out. And there was one point people would speculate that on the sideline he'd sit there and he shook his head and he said it's not right, basically like he knew the fix was in kind of thing, and he's like, I should be out there, like that we shouldn't be putting him out there for no reason. But you can take it for what you will. There's some speculation, Dan, that Jamar Chase is the guy they're targeting at 6. I don't know how I feel about a wide receiver that high, but as we move into the Bills-Dolphins, which was kind of the only real impactful game that kind of shook up some things and knocked the Dolphins out, what did you guys kind of think of that, and what do you make of the Dolphins kind of going into next year since they came up just a little bit short this year?
I mean, I think they definitely have a lot of things to build on. I don't think any of us at the beginning of this year thought that they were going to be a team that was legitimately about to make the playoffs this year or had a real shot going into Week 17 of making the playoffs. I didn't. I thought, they had some, building to do with Tua and getting him kind of used to things. And I think the way they kind of did things toward the end of the year with Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of being a safety net, I said last week, we talked about could that actually work. I said it could work in the short term, but that's something that he's going to have to learn how to be the quarterback without a safety net at some point. And we saw what that looked like against the Bills, on Sunday.
I mean,
so
I actually think
wasn't
that
good.
Miami looked pretty bad, and I saw somebody tweet, and Schefter was like, "Yep, it's confirmed. They plan to stick with Tua for 2021. He's their guy moving forward." And it's like, obviously, but I actually think they might, from a record standpoint, like decline a little bit next year if with him as the full-time starter, because I just think that he's going to take a little bit of time to kind of get fully up to speed with just being an NFL quarterback, and there's still people who doubt if he's able to be that guy.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say the Dolphins were who I thought they were. To Dan, you're kind of like, you're calling me a Ravens fan. Well, I'm gonna call you a Dolphins fan because that was kind of the team that you backed and just continued to say. And they only came up one game short. So I'm just gonna say the Dolphins were who I thought they were. And for this week, this performance in Week 17 was a terrible disappointment for them. To go into a team, obviously the Bills are a really good team, but to go against the Bills team that had nothing to play for. Okay, they had nothing to play for, and they only played their quarterback for a half and rested maybe, I don't know exactly who they did and didn't rest. I think they might have rested another defensive or another. I know they rested Diggs in the second half, another player, starter or two. So you only really played the starters for one half, and you got so far behind in that first half where you really had not much of a chance to come back. And then you got obliterated in the second half by a combination of starters and backups. Their defense gives up 56 points against a team who played a backup quarterback in the second half. Terribly disappointing game, and with an opportunity to win and you're in. I mean, I didn't think they could get through their schedule, but then they get through the first two games of it, and then the hardest one against the Bills looks a little easier for them. Like they might actually have a better chance to beat the Bills because of the Bills having nothing to play for, and they come out and lay an absolute egg. So that was disappointing if you're a Dolphins fan. I will say, as a whole, if I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm very happy with the year. I think there's something to build on. I like this Dolphins team coming up in the future.
Yeah.
Tua's got to progress, but they got to get some talent around him.
Yeah.
But good. I mean, good for the Dolphins. It was a good season. They got something to build on. I didn't see them getting there this year anyway. Like I said all year, but definitely something to build on.
The Dolphins were my my gut pick, my emotional pick. So yeah, I'll take flack for that. But I think they had a good showing. What we need to talk about here, and we need to come back and address this. Is Trav, are you willing to finally say that Josh Allen needs to be in the MVP discussion? Because that dude's been balling out. He's led the Bills to the second best record in it. What we've all said is the strongest conference in football. Are you ready to kind of say this dude's for real, and maybe your evaluation of him isn't quite what you thought it was?
Yeah, I was wrong about how good Josh Allen was, but I think the MVP is a two-man discussion. So if you want to open up to just to have a third, maybe he's the third guy. But for me, it's not MVP discussion. But he had a heck of a year, and he's way better this year than I ever thought he would be.
I agree. I'm right there with you. So I've been super impressed with him, and if he plays at that level in the playoffs, they're going to be able to compete with anybody they play against, and it's not going to be an easy game, even if they play against the Chiefs, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If he plays as good as he did, that's going to be a ball game.
They actually kind of scare me more than the Chiefs right now.
That Miami game, what I took out of that game was a lot less about Miami because we kind of already knew that they were kind of not quite there yet. But what I took from the Bills was, man, there's nobody playing better football overall to me right now than the Bills.
Yeah, Josh Allen, I mean, the first three series, because I'm watching the game, I don't want to play the Ravens in the first round as a Steelers fan, so I'm thinking the Bills need to win this game, so the Ravens bump up to the 5 seed, we get Cleveland. I wanted Cleveland over Indy or Baltimore, which we got. So Josh Allen, they go 3 and out, they're doing nothing, and then all of a sudden...
Now you guys are going to play the Cleveland Cavaliers, you're not even going to play the Browns because they're going to have all their backups in.
All of a sudden the Bills flip a switch, and Allen's just throwing bombs, just to y'all's point of how well he's playing. But who would have thought, the funny thing about it is, who would have thought that Ryan Fitzpatrick catching COVID would have maybe been the reason, because that they would have put Fitzpatrick in way earlier than the fourth quarter. They probably would have put him in late second quarter, early third quarter, and maybe they come back. I still don't think they do, but maybe they come back. So it would have been interesting to see if they would have. But spinning it forward here to the way the whole AFC playoff picture kind of finished out, the Bills-Dolphins game was the beginning of the domino effect. Okay, if the Bills won, given that the other teams probably were going to win their games the way it looked, would have basically the AFC playoff picture would have stood pat. But the Bills losing opens it up for the Colts to get in. So the Ravens win, they go to the 5 seed. The Browns win, and they go to the 6 seed. And the Indy gets in as the 7 seed, and the Dolphins are out. So that was the game. That was kind of the game. How long would the Bills starters play? They played long enough, and they dominated. They win.
Even though Indy had
And
a little
then
bit of a
watching the
scare.
Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, though, Cleveland kind of flirted with disaster a little bit, man. It came down to the wire, and if they would have lost that game, Miami then would have gotten in. But to see that was kind of, I thought, like the drama was in the 1 o'clock games, and then to see that Tennessee, Indy, who was going to win that division, with Tennessee winning on a late 50-yard bomb to get in field goal range, that played out pretty excitedly. So it played out good, but as it ends up, you got Tennessee as the 4 seed. Winning that division. So then you got the Ravens as the 5. We talked about the stacked playoff picture all year with the wild card, and the way it turns out is Baltimore gets the 5 seed. Again, the Ravens were who I thought they were too, because they end up making the playoffs, and it actually got the top wild card seed. So Ravens at the 5, they're going to play Tennessee. Cleveland at 6 as a 6 seed, they're going to play Pittsburgh, and then Indy as a 7, going to play Buffalo. So it should be a pretty good wild card round.
So to me, the most intriguing matchup is still the Tennessee-Baltimore one, just because I feel like Buffalo is going to win. The Steelers should win given the circumstances, and I think they're the better team regardless at full strength. But I think the Tennessee-Baltimore game is just interesting because my gut still wants me to pick Baltimore. We're going to do our picks before our Saturday show that we do for the playoff preview, our special show at 12 on Saturday. But I just feel like I want to go Ravens, but part of me is like, man, like the last 2 times Tennessee's found a way to beat them. Even the most recent game when Tennessee should have lost that game, and they just let Derrick Henry run right down their throats and take them into overtime and then beat them in overtime.
Yeah, I love this matchup. It's probably my favorite matchup of
I agree.
the first week. That and the Buffalo-Indy game. Like, Indy can come out and compete with Buffalo, in my opinion, but I also think Buffalo's, like, playing really well. But there's something about Indy where they seem like they have a chance, if everything plays out right, where they can play complementary football and give the Bills a run for their money. So it's one thing to do it in the regular season; it's another to do it in the playoffs. But the Baltimore-Tennessee game has the physicality, like the old school football that we kind of grew up on. Like 2 teams that are going to go after it, they're going to hit one another, they're going to run the football. It's going to be a time of possession game. That's what I want to see in the playoffs. So I'm super excited about that. And I think it's a coin flip type of a game. I could see Derrick Henry tearing it up, Tannehill having a good game, but I could also see Lamar Jackson just, getting some revenge after last year's playoff exit. And this will be a good opportunity for us to see, has Lamar Jackson grown since last year's playoff exit?
That's what I gotta say. I think it's a big match for him. Can he slay one of those big giants that, like, right now it's the Titans, Steelers, and Chiefs are the teams that he has to get past, like, that are kind of his demons he's got to slay.
I agree with you. It's the one I'm most excited about, just in terms of like both teams being really quality teams, both teams being teams that can make a run, and it's also got everything you said, Dan, plus some history here. Yeah. Tennessee, when Baltimore goes 15-1 last year, Tennessee comes in as like the late little Cinderella story, and they knock them off in the division round, so they're pissed about that. Then they want to get their revenge 6 weeks ago, and Baltimore really, I don't want to say dominated the game, but they outplayed them for 3 to 3.5 quarters, and then Tennessee late comes back, gets it into overtime, wins it in overtime. So the Ravens, they're chomping at the bit to get into this one. I do think, like I was sitting there thinking like it's going to be the best game, and it's the one I'm looking the most forward to because of the quality of both teams. But then something came over me today where I was just like, I don't know, man. I could see the Ravens. I could see, even though it's played out differently the last 2 times and it's pretty much the same team for both teams, I could see the Ravens winning this one handily. I'm not saying I think they will, but something just told me like maybe it won't be a good game yet, because I just think the Ravens are playing really well right now. And the more I watch Tennessee's defense, I'm like, I know they've done enough to stop Lamar, and maybe it's because Tennessee's secondary is so weak, but a quarterback like Lamar isn't the type to expose it. Maybe that's why it's played into where Tennessee's been able to contain the offense, because I think Tennessee's run defense is a little bit better than their pass defense. I don't think either one of them's good, but it's better to where, okay, we can do some things to contain that, but we can't really in the passing game, and Lamar's not the guy to expose your passing game like most quarterbacks would. So maybe that's the reason why, but I'm just thinking that defense, with the way the Ravens offense is playing and the way I think their defense will probably play, I feel like Tannehill's maybe hasn't been as good the last 3 weeks as he was earlier in the year. So we'll see. I am still the most excited for that one, but we'll see how it plays out.
What do you think, Aggie?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one too. And kind of like Dan said, the Colts-Bills, I am looking to see what Josh Allen's going to do in the playoffs. Is he going to play at the same high level? Is the pressure going to get to him? The big thing is they are at home, so the Colts got to come to the cold Buffalo, and they are going to have fans for the first time in Buffalo this year. So that'll be cool to see Bills Mafia. I know they're going to be excited. They don't.
Yeah, I agree with you, Aggie. I thought this was like my second favorite game to watch because I think the Colts. I'm not gonna say they could do it or maybe even give them a close run, but I'm just interested to see because they're a good team. They're good enough to play with the Bills.
Yeah, and I think that I want to just say that the governor for Pennsylvania sucks, and he should be letting more than 2,500 fans in Pittsburgh when New York's allowing 12,000. Yeah, so just a little personal shout out of hate to him for not allowing more fans in Pittsburgh. But I do have a question for you guys. So obviously we're talking AFC, and the Steelers had a good strong season. They started 11-0, and then they went 1-4 down the stretch. The Bills rather got hot at the right time, and then you have who would you guys pick? I guess it really doesn't really matter. But my question is, which of these three games, who would be the most disappointing loss? Out of the teams that lose. So Pittsburgh's obviously
AFC?
So Pittsburgh's obviously favored to beat Cleveland, and then you have between the Ravens and Titans, it's kind of a toss.
Well, half of you guys are already invalidated on that question.
Well, no,
because we know Pittsburgh's going to be so disappointing.
Yeah, but for me, the reason I ask is because for me it's the Bills. So Pittsburgh, if the Bills were to lose that, they are playing the hottest football. Everybody thinks they're the best team in football right now. They're power ranked at everybody. If you get to the playoffs and then you just lay a dud, to me that is worse than Pittsburgh, who it's you don't know which team's going to show up. And then the Ravens and Titans, it's kind of a toss up of a game anyways.
So I have an answer for that isn't necessarily cut and dry. I agree with you. So I think the Steelers would be potentially more because I respect the Browns way less than I respect Indy. So even though the Bills are better than the Steelers right now, playing better, a better team overall, and there's definitely a gap there. Not to say that Pittsburgh can't beat them because I think they could, but especially with a lack of fans. But I think, and especially if the COVID issues that we're seeing with the Browns continue to compound, and there's even more. They're already without their head coach and a few starters. There could be more to come. And if it begins something near the Ravens game and they were to lose that would be, and given that the Steelers don't have COVID cases or anything drastic, that would definitely be the most disappointing. But even if at full strength, I think the Steelers should win more than the Bills should because I think the Indy is that much better of a team than the Browns are.
Even though the
Plus,
Browns
look at the inexperience factor.
Did beat Indy earlier in the season.
Buffalo is still a much younger team. Pittsburgh has a lot more veterans, especially at the quarterback position. You can understand a little bit when you're young, not necessarily getting it done in the playoffs consistently yet and stuff like that. And like you said, Jody, if it's, they lay an egg, that's different than a really close game. It's a good game, and they just happen to lose it versus Pittsburgh. Yeah. I think just about everybody in Pittsburgh, you're going to be, it's going to be a shock to me. I think it'll be pretty shocking if the Browns beat the Steelers.
I'm not trying to count my chickens before they hatch.
I'm not either. Depending on how many COVID guys go out, I wouldn't call it shocking. But
but I'm just looking at it too.
For a reason. They're a good team.
They barely beat the Steelers with their backups and the backup quarterback last week. You know what I mean? It's so now you're getting Roethlisberger back. You're getting other guys Pouncey. You're getting other guys back.
That's the thing that worries me is that I look back at years ago when everybody was just we get Jacksonville in the divisional, blah, 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 all this stuff. Whenever you start to hype yourself thinking that, okay, well, we have this advantage, whenever you give yourself the mentality of having this advantage, that's when I feel like you play the worst. So I hope
you shouldn't. You should still go into it. You got to play the game.
At the risk of talking too much, because we still got a lot to cover on Saturday, guys, don't forget to tune in. Here are our viewers on Saturday for the pregame playoff show that we're going to have on Saturday, previewing all 6 playoff games for the weekend. Let's turn it to the NFC playoff picture. And the game over the weekend that kind of was the game that decided the last couple teams getting in was the Cardinals-Rams game.
The game sucked.
And
worst game ever.
You had one of those two teams definitely getting in. Whichever team won definitely got in. Depending on what the Bears did, one team could be out and who won the game. So Arizona had to win, and they didn't. Obviously, the Rams win, so the Rams lock up the 6th seed. The Bears lose, but they backslide into the playoffs as the 7th seed because the Cardinals, their late season meltdown. One more time, I'm going to say it. The Cardinals were who I thought they were. Dan, your Cardinals. I'm going to call you out one more time on a team that you were kind of all about. So anyway, I had to get my last shot in there. I won't do it anymore. Look, it was unfortunate to see the way it happened. I wish it would have been Jared Goff versus Kyler Murray. It really sucked for all of us and for CBS to put Jim Nantz and the main crew there, even though it wasn't Romo out with COVID protocol. on that game, and then you get I guess is it John Wolford? You get Wolford versus whoever. I don't even remember the guy's name. The
Yeah, I
CFL
couldn't tell
guy.
you.
Just wannabe Ryan Fitzpatrick Beard. He was terrible. And then at the last
so
like a
bad.
last ditch
They had to put
effort.
Kyler Murray out there on one leg. Yeah.
Have you ever seen a guy sit out a quarterback sit out for 2.5 quarters and basically be like, yeah, he's done for the game, and then the backup's so bad that you put a guy out there on one leg who you know's hurt, you just hope like he really hope to do anything.
I mean,
And
I've seen a guy
he did give him.
with a bum shoulder go out there and win a playoff game doing that in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I know, but they'd only set out like it wasn't quite as long as Kyler Murray did, but yeah, that was similar. So, yeah, that game, it was sad to see that game the way it was because it just ended up being, not much of a game when it really could have been, I think, like a really good one to decide who would get in and who didn't.
Yeah.
If the Cardinals would have won, then both teams would have got in, but they didn't. So the seeding plays out as it was. I would have liked to see a better game out of that, though, so that was disappointing.
Yeah, outside of the Philly-Washington game, that was like the worst. Like there was 2 bad games. I'm sure the NFL isn't happy about that. Probably they thought they were going to get Kyler and Goff and then end up with like 2 backups in a Philly game. It was awful. But NFC picture is kind of interesting. As much as I dogged on like the Skins and how they kind of are the worst
Washington
of the worst in
team.
NFC. Yeah, my bad. The WFT. One of the things that I find the most intriguing in matchups is the Washington football team front 4 versus Tom Brady. We know historically the type of teams that give him fits are teams that can rush with the front 4 and play coverage in the back, and if they can get pressure, they can make a really long day for him. So of all the matchups that I kind of see there, I think that has upset potential, and it also has to do with the fact that the Bucs, even though I picked them preseason to go the whole way to the Super Bowl, I just haven't seen enough consistency. I don't know what I'm going to get from them from week to week, and teams that I feel like they should have just totally blown out. Like they played the Falcons twice, and they were way more competitive than they should have been. Games like that, they just haven't shown me what I think you should see in a Super Bowl caliber team. So that's the game that I'm kind of going to be keen on, just to see how the Washington defense, who has beaten some good teams, beat the Steelers earlier in the year. I feel like they kind of backed their way into the playoffs because of the quarterback situation more than the defensive situation.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I don't know. I just feel like I had this bad feeling the other day. I thought about it, and I was like, I have this really bad feeling that Tampa Bay is like playing everybody all season. They're just like, we don't really care. Let's just get to the playoffs, and then we're gonna turn it on. And I'm just like, I really don't want Brady to win another one. I really don't want Antonio Brown to win one with Brady because that whole situation. So I'm kind of hoping you're right, Dan, but I don't see it happening. What I am excited for is hopefully to see the Saints look clean against Chicago. I have a slight worry that they might start slow in that game, especially with Kamara being out most likely. But to me, the Bears still really aren't even deserving of being a playoff team, so I don't think it should be too much of a problem for them. But that's the game that I'm going to probably be watching the most of in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably looking at that one too. I want to see how the Saints look with, a good offense, minus Kamara, but and their defense too, because we have talked about how good the Saints defense can be at times this year. I want to see, how they get after it as well. I wanted to see what y'all's thoughts were on the Bucs Washington game being in the primetime slot on Saturday. Do y'all think that's pretty much just because they wanted to put Tom Brady in primetime?
I have no idea. I have no idea why they would do that. I mean, even with
I
Brady,
was like, I just feel like it's an ugly game.
you don't think that the modern day NFL fan wants to see Lamar Jackson, in pretty much any other quarterback other than Brady, but definitely Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and maybe even Baker, probably not Baker, but maybe even Baker over Tom Brady. So I don't know why they scheduled. I thought they tried to save their best games for primetime, and to me, the Browns Steelers especially now, and I know they didn't know that going in with COVID stuff, but even before it, had the potential to be more of a blowout than almost any other game other than Tampa Bay Washington.
Yeah.
And both of those games at primetime, it's like,
I was puzzled by both of them.
I don't understand at all why they were doing the schedule other than we just want Brady on primetime. I don't think that's going to drive ratings more than putting Lamar Jackson against a good Tennessee team.
Or even Indy at Buffalo could have been a more exciting primetime game.
Buffalo, because Josh Allen's like the young up-and-coming quarterback.
Who are you marketing in the 8 o'clock game?
I understand the Steelers-Browns initially being the primetime because it's a divisional game. Like they do tend to cater to divisional games like that. And the Browns' first time getting in the playoffs in 20 years, so it's a big game.
I get that.
Moment. But obviously,
do the Browns drive ratings?
I don't know that they do either.
Steelers do. The Steelers do, obviously.
I think Baker Mayfield drives more ratings
think
than
he
we want to
does.
give him credit for.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
I think people
And the
would.
Steelers,
I think people will tune
a lot
in.
of it's the Steelers. I'll just say it. I mean, I'm not saying it because I'm a fan, but they have a huge following that the
Oh,
Browns
absolutely.
and the Bucks and
I think
as a team, these other-
that people will tune in though to see how the Browns do in their first time in the playoffs in 20 years. I think people will tune in to see that. But like you said, if you can't do Seattle Rams in the prime spot because Jared Goff's probably not going to play.
Yeah,
so that's like
I agree.
And you can't put Mr. Biscuit in prime time. So really, it's like I felt like the other two games really for me. I expected Lamar.
Why not Bills?
Yep.
Why not? Yeah, why not Titans? Why not Titans, Ravens, and Bills, Colts over the others? Those two to me.
Yep.
Same.
I think the NFL's struggling right now, like to have. Well, they're not doing a great job when they have them, but I was just thinking about this. Like, there's not a lot of like marketable. Like the guys that would normally be marketed didn't make the playoffs this year, so I think they're struggling. Like Brady's kind of like at the end of his career, so like what do you do with him? Like they just kind of toss him a bone, put him in prime time because it's Tom Brady. But like all year long, what like I don't know. I think people are just over that. You know what I mean? They're ready for like.
Look,
You also have Rodgers and Holmes on the bye.
I get it if it
Right? Yeah, you got those guys on the bye. So like, what do you do?
Yeah, I get it if it's all about just wanting to see Brady, but they're playing the 7-9 team. Like, come on. And I know that the 7-9 and 7-8-1 teams, the last two times they've been in the playoffs, they've won the game. But, I mean, come on. What are the odds? It's still low odds that the Skins compete in this game, much less win it.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand why you would put that dud of a team, the Washington football team, excuse me, in the primetime slot. I don't care if it's
We're
Mahomes.
still failing at that.
You know what I
You
mean?
just saw them in a primetime game and it was awful.
Yeah.
I know. Look what you
They
got.
learned their lesson. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is, but we'll have plenty of time to talk more about these. I'm actually really excited for our show on Saturday at 12.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Because there's so much more we can go in depth with. But as we're getting close to wrapping up the normal show, we do want to talk a little bit about the college football playoff. So the stage is set. They play next Monday, correct? I believe it's usually on a Monday night. So it'll be Alabama, Ohio State. After Ohio State somewhat upset Clemson. Some people gave them a chance, I think, but we really just
I think
didn't
it's a
know.
pretty big upset.
Oh, and I think I was the only guy on this podcast that gave him a chance.
Oh no, I'm saying in general, like the media, like there wasn't like Ohio State has no shot at winning from what I saw.
I was surprised at how much I saw a lot of people saying Ohio State had no chance. It got to the point where I kind of expected, like, well, I guess, because I didn't watch a ton of college football this year.
Yeah.
So it got to the point for me where I was like, listening to everybody that has watched all year, and I was like, I guess Clemson will probably win this somewhat
I
easily.
expected Clemson to win it.
And then
I did not
I
see.
did, but I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't see
thought
Ohio
Ohio
State
had
play like
a
that
real
all
chance.
year.
No, they did.
I thought
didn't
they
see
had a
Ohio
chance.
State.
I thought it would be
They played
competitive.
They played their best.
Look, you can say all you want about they
Yeah.
didn't deserve to be there, but they took advantage of their opportunities
They
and
played
proved
their
that they're
best
just
game
as
all
good
year.
as
I've seen
anybody.
them
And in the
Three
same
games
token, I don't
for
think
us.
Clemson played well. Like, I just think they had
No,
a
they
bad
didn't.
game too.
They did not play
But
well.
but to compound that, I mean, Ohio State played very well. They did everything right, and I was very impressed with Justin Fields.
They dominated.
I've been kind of down. I was not that big on Justin Fields like before. I hadn't seen a lot of him, but I was like, what I had seen of him, I wasn't overly impressed. I mean, I thought he was good.
I think he
don't get me
translates
wrong,
to the
but
NFL.
potentially. I mean,
The skill set- I think it's-
the league is going more towards mobile quarterbacks. I mean,
He definitely is mobile, but he's not a guy he's definitely a guy that throws from the pocket. Now, before I saw him in this game, I'm with you, Aggie. I wasn't super impressed with him, especially just seeing. I know he uses his mobility a lot, and that's more coming in the NFL. But you still got to be able to me, I look at your pocket passing skill, and I was like, okay. But seeing first of all his toughness, that shot he took, man, that was
a
shot.
rough one, dude.
I can't even believe
helmet
he came back
right
in
to
the
the
game.
ribs, man.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he
Cracked
comes
ribs
back,
are
he
out.
actually. Yeah, as soon as he comes back, he actually starts playing better.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just
He
the
was a
way he
heat
did
ball
throw it,
right
hit
after.
the ball and throw it from the pocket all night, I was really impressed. Thinking,
Dude,
like,
he threw that one
actually-
like 60 yards on the fly. That was
Yeah,
I
nice
actually
throw.
came out of it thinking like I thought the next day some people, and I wouldn't necessarily say this, some people might start the argument of should Fields go over Lawrence?
Yeah, I heard
And,
that.
I'll be
because that's
honest
the
with
radical
you.
thing to do is give a huge take
And I'll
on
be
one
honest
game.
with you, I'm not a huge Trevor Lawrence guy. I don't think he's a slam dunk like next
Joe Burrow.
3 years from now he's a superstar NFL guy. I think he's a little bit overrated.
Did you think
So
Joe
I
Burrow
wouldn't have
was?
thought it was even that crazy. I don't think either one of them's that good, to be honest. Like to the point where people, how much people talk about them. I'm not saying they're bad.
Did you think Joe Burrow
but-
was, Trav? Last year?
Yeah, I like
his
Burrow.
1 year.
I love Burrow.
I like
He's-
Burrow.
So coming in, you thought he would be like he would translate and that he was.
I didn't think he would be this good this year. I thought he might have some rookie struggles. He came out pretty hot, but I thought overall, like 3 years, he'll be a
I mean, you
star
really
NFL
don't
quarterback.
know with quarterbacks. I mean, you really don't know.
Yeah,
There
it's
was-
so
there was
hit and
a
miss.
there's a thing today I saw that talked about the 2012 draft and it had like Andrew Luck, RG3, all those guys, and it was like everybody that was in the top like round that was drafted, all the quarterbacks there, none of them have really won anything. Luck was a good quarterback. I think we all can agree on that. But the guys who have won Super Bowls were, Russell Wilson and Nick Foles. Those were the guys that were obviously given the circumstances, but those are the guys that were drafted later. So it's hard to know in the first year or two what these guys are going to do. That's why I've always been unless you're getting like a slam dunk like a Joe Burrow, or I guess, I don't know. I'm indifferent on Trevor Lawrence as well. I'm more of a get a guy in the later rounds and develop him kind of guy for quarterbacks. And I mean, speaking of which, I will do a little shout out that Mason Rudolph did kind of shut me up and prove some of the haters wrong by having a great game.
Let's get into some Mason Rudolph talk, folks.
That'll be for the post show.
So that is gonna wrap up our regular show on the college football though, since we are coming to a close on that. So we're gonna go into our post show now. But thanks for joining us. If you are getting off now, just remember Saturday we will do some promotions on Facebook and Instagram as well. But Saturday at 12 noon we will be doing a playoff, a wild card playoff preview, where we're going to make our picks and talk about the upcoming games for Saturday and Sunday. And we plan to do that every week for the playoffs. So shifting into the post show.
Yo, we got some fan comments I need to get to here.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead and kick us off.
We've had some Bogarters during the show, so I wanted to get to a couple of these. First of all, one of the fans, Gary Leitner, said the reason that they made the playoff times what they did is because they knew that he had to go to bed, and he has connections in New York, and they know that he goes to bed early on Sunday, so that's why they put the Ravens earlier in the day. So
why do you think I'm upset that Pittsburgh's in that slot, man?
The other thing I wanted to say is we have a stone cold lock from Greg Ferry. His stone cold lock is that Washington football team will upset Tampa Bay.
Greg,
so
listen, I know it's your birthday. Happy birthday and all. But
yeah, happy birthday, Uncle G.
Big shout out, happy birthday to the old man.
But that's a crazy wild take right there.
No, it's actually not I know I just went on a thing. I think it's stupid that they put it in prime time because I think it's the most chance of a blowout. But there's a part of me because of the defensive line of the Redskins, and that's specifically what Brady struggles with is pressure up the middle, and that what the Bucs have struggled with is protecting Brady. That they could give them a real game. I don't know that they could win it, but I think they could keep it to like a 13-6 type of game late in the game, and then have a chance, but definitely ain't making a lock to call it a win. I think it's a struggle for them just to keep it close.
I will say he has a better comment on there, Dan. I don't know if you saw that one, that Carson Wentz is the Chris Davis of the Eagles. I love that.
I'm struggling.
That's spot on. That is spot on.
I'm struggling in every single sport right now. Whether, I'm just hoping the Flyers have a good season here because in baseball it's terrible, in football it's terrible.
Don't talk to me about terrible, man. The Orioles have been awful for about 6 years now.
Oh my goodness. So one of the things I wanted to talk about when we were talking about the AFC picture, and I think it's worthwhile, especially with all the speculation surrounding Carson Wentz. So thanks for bringing that up, Ag. But if the Colts just get utterly destroyed on Saturday, is Phillip Rivers just one and done, and they're looking to bring in another quarterback?
I think it might be done anyways.
You mean like Carson Wentz?
I think it might be done anyways.
It could be, but it could be somebody else too.
I think that they're not. I don't think they're going to bring him back for a 1 year deal. They did a 1 year deal with him, and I don't know. I feel like they're not going to bring him back.
Look,
I've heard that he's hinted at retirement.
Before the Wentz talk, before all the Wentz talk started like 4 or 5 weeks ago, and that whole thing got going, all I heard from people was that Frank Reich has been talking up Rivers and that his arm is as live as it's ever been. Not that it's ever been that live, because we all know how Rivers pushes. He pushes the ball. That's his throwing motion. And so anyway, it's live enough to have the career he's had. So, Reich talked him up. His arm's fine. He thrown the ball just like he did 4 or 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or whenever, they worked together. So that's all I heard. And then they were happy. I mean, obviously they had a good season. They were way better on offense than they were last year with Jacoby Brissett. And so all accounts were like, yeah, they'll probably bring him back for 1 more year. Obviously, I don't know past next year what it would be. It's not going to be long term because he's old. But
yeah,
do you think they can win with Rivers?
Well, I would think they're going to maybe try 1 more run because they went 11-5 this year. I don't think it necessarily depends on or matters what they do this week. Maybe it does a little bit to an extent, but unless they really want Wentz and can get Wentz, I would lean towards they probably.
I have another name. I have another name that I think could be to go there, and that's Matt Stafford. I think that would be an amazing fit for Matt Stafford.
Yeah. I think that would be a great marriage.
I think he's an upgrade to Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, he is.
Given the receivers and the talent.
Oh yeah.
Matt Stafford under Frank Reich as an offensive mind with him still having the arm that he has.
He probably has a good 4 or 5 years left still. Stafford
with a good defense. I mean, they played their line of scrimmage, their defensive line and their offensive line in terms of like one, they have the best two line. I'm not saying they're one in both, but in terms of, the offensive line and the defensive line, the balance there, that's, I mean, it didn't get much better than what you got in Indy. They maybe could use another weapon on offense, and they definitely could upgrade at quarterback a little bit, and maybe another defensive playmaker, but like they're a solid team. They probably are a star quarterback away from maybe making a real run.
Let's talk about.
That's what I was thinking.
Let's talk
like
about
if they see that as the issue.
About coaches. So there's obviously, the new coaching vacancies. Which one of the vacancies do you guys think is the most desirable? And do you really think Urban Meyer has a chance of coming to the NFL?
I don't know if he's really. I mean, maybe. I mean,
say he's asking for $12 million, which is like apparently that's like.
That's pretty. That's. I don't think that's higher than anybody else.
Right? That's John Harbaugh, Pete Carroll money, basically.
Yeah, you're not getting it. I mean, he shouldn't get it at the pro level, in my opinion.
He will. They get
but
Chip
as far
Kelly,
as
too much.
But as far as what your question was about, what's the most desirable? I mean, I would probably lean towards the Chargers job. I mean, I feel like they're on the upswing. They got a young quarterback to build with. I mean, that's the biggest thing as a coach going into it is who's your quarterback. And it looks, by all accounts of what we've seen, that they have a good young quarterback to build on. So
yeah, we talked about this. As far as talent and what you had there, obviously you have the quarterback there, it looks like, and you have talent around him. The Chargers is the clear-cut number one. But like we talked about as well, the Chargers ownership sucks.
Yeah.
Nobody, and it's known around the league. It's been talked about and it's known. Nobody wants to work for Spanos. So what do you value as a coach? Like when you're looking for an opportunity, you're a coach that's coveted by maybe multiple teams. What do you covet? Ownership or talent? So it just depends on how you look at it. Talent-wise, I think it's the Chargers head and shoulders above anyone. Altogether, it might not be because of the ownership.
I don't know, man. Texans, to me, seem to have a little bit of talent as well.
Not
Obviously,
as much as the Chargers, but
they got a great quarterback, but he's not as young.
But I will say,
but don't forget, their draft pick situation is terrible.
Yeah, they have a terrible draft pick situation, and there's some guys that are there that I think won out because of the situation.
You don't see the Jets? Does anyone see the Jets as anything there?
Why would you want to go there? It's nothing but a dumpster fire.
I wouldn't.
I think there's I think there's an. Well, yeah. I mean,
I'd take any job.
Now you got to contend with the Bills.
I'd take whatever.
Patriots are going to rebuild. The Miami's on the upswing. The Bills are really good. You're not going to win anything in that division.
So let me ask you this then. Like, do you guys feel like Trav mentioned the name of Josh McDaniels should really be chomping at the bit to get one of these jobs? Obviously, he deserves a shot, and he had a few years in Denver. But do you really think that Belichick's going to stay with the Patriots much longer? I mean, he's got to be on his way out at some point, right? I feel like Josh McDaniels is waiting for that job. I think he's waiting for the Patriots job.
Well, it seemed like when he took the Indy job, or he supposedly took the job 2 or 3 years ago, and then reneged at the last second.
You really learned from Belichick on that, didn't he?
Yeah, well, exactly. and they gave him a little bit more money, and they kept him there. It seemed like, okay, they want to keep him there, obviously, because they want to be the offensive coordinator, but also like Kraft probably is thinking like, man, I want to keep him and be the next guy. So it does seem like that. But if you're Josh McDaniel, do you want to stay there when you don't know what it's right now? It doesn't look like a great team.
No talent there.
So do you want to stay there when you don't know if Belichick? I think Belichick's going to coach a couple more years. I don't think he seems like a lifer to me that's going to coach for a while. So I don't know if he would. I don't know. But whenever he leaves, you don't know what the team's going to be, as opposed to, let's say, the Chargers job, where you can go to a team that has a young quarterback for years to come. It looks like, and talent that around him right now to take that job. So maybe you're right. Maybe that ship has already sailed in McDaniel's mind, where he's just like, look, I'm here in New England now to take, and maybe him and Belichick have had discussions where he's like, Belichick has given him an idea of when he thinks he's going to leave. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but I don't know if that job's.
But if he hasn't, maybe he goes to the Chargers, and then in a few years, if it's not working out that great, and Belichick's going to retire, then he comes back. Because if he has a good relationship with Kraft, then that's definitely a potential.
Yeah, I feel like the Patriots next year are going to bounce back a little bit once their guys play, because they don't sit out for COVID. I think they'll get some of their talent back. And I think
if they quarterback next year.
If they don't,
who's the quarterback next year?
I don't know. Yeah, Cam Newton is not going to be returning. They already made that.
He had a 1-year deal, right?
Yeah, they made it clear that they're not re-signing him.
Yeah, so is Stidham going to be their guy for next year? I mean, they have a lot of question marks on their roster.
They'll probably draft somebody who they like and roll with it, but I don't know. I just feel
probably
like
Trevor Lawrence.
If they don't have a good bounce back year next year, if Belichick goes like under sub 500 next year, I think he'll probably get out while he's already like ahead.
Do you guys see? I think he's grooming his son to take that coaching job. Personally,
old Steve Bullet Belichick.
I don't know about that.
I think he is.
He's like special teams right now, right?
Yeah.
I don't think he's ready for that anytime soon.
He's very young.
That would be like 5, 7, 8 years down the line, maybe. But
listen,
he's actually.
I would love to see that mullet.
Maybe he coaches for that long.
Yeah, he might coach for 5 more years. I wouldn't be stunned. But let me ask you this then, to wrap this point up.
He's a linebackers coach
If you're
for
Robert
them.
Kraft and they go like 2 more years of 6-10, do you fire Bill Belichick?
No.
I think
He
Belichick
walks
will
out.
leave. I think
He'll
leave.
go
That's what I
before-
said. If they have another
He'll
bad
go
year,
before he
he'll
gets
leave.
fired.
It'll be
But
Andy
Belichick
Reid's
said,
can't
no,
fire
I'm
the
not,
guy
I'm
that
not
won that many
retiring. I'm
Super
not letting you
Bowls.
force me out. You have to fire me.
Why would he want to have bad
man,
years?
I don't think
year
he'll
after
do
year?
that.
He's not a loser. He hates losing. He hates the media.
But
he hates
dude,
everything associated
I
with
know,
it.
but I maybe, but they always think they can turn it around. So I think there's a part of Belichick right now though that likes this, like wants to start over with. Now he needs a quarterback, but I think there's a part of him that says, all right, I did that for 20 years where we were expected to win every year.
Yeah.
I want a new challenge of like recycling and starting up a new thing. I think there's a part of that
See
that he
if
likes.
can
And
adapt
that's
to
why
the
I
new
think
style of football. Yeah.
that's why I think he will stick around for a few more years to see if he can build it.
It's
He
like
also-
playing Madden when you get your franchise to the point where you're just destroying, and then eventually you're like, you know what? I'm going to go pick the Browns and rebuild this team, and it's way
I would
more
never
fun.
pick
That's
the
what
Browns.
Belichick's doing.
Yep.
Well, you
But-
wouldn't, but
Well,
maybe the
that's what they say right
Jaguars
now. We have
are a bad
comments.
team. Right.
We got the comments right now from our listeners, and Gary said, yeah, Brady saw the writing on the wall. New England's a big rebuild right now. And Greg Ferry says Wentz to New England.
Wow, that actually
Interesting.
would be interesting to
Essentially.
see.
My thing
Nobody's
is,
really
if
talked about
anybody
that.
does a deal with Wentz, they're going to have to find a way. Like, I'm sure there's going to be some stipulations on Philly paying some part of that contract because no
I
one's
don't-
going to pick up that full
No,
contract.
not if you believe Wentz is the guy, because Wentz is making the
Yes.
going rate for what quarterbacks make now. They make
He's
a
what,
ridiculous
34,
amount of money
34,
that
something
they
like
make.
that?
It's actually a
Right.
friendly contract to
Is it?
Philly when he signed it. Yeah.
Right. So regardless of it, it's a quarterback contract. So, but the thing is, you have to believe that he is clear cut.
You got to believe that he's a franchise quarterback.
Right, but a really good franchise quarterback, because
Right.
you could be the
Top
a franchise
10,
quarterback
top
could be
10.
the 18th best quarterback in the league,
Right.
which is what looks like his upside right now.
Let me
After
tell you
seeing
right
what he's
now.
But I
done-
think he's at least in the top 10 or above.
after
Carson
seeing what
Wentz-
he's done
If he
After
goes
seeing
to,
what
if he
he's
goes to New
done
England, dude,
for
he's
the
too
last 2 years,
with
does
Bill
anybody
Belichick.
think he's clear cut good enough to make the money he's making? That's the question.
No, he doesn't have the
Right.
he doesn't have the fortitude, the mental whatever
Well,
that
then yeah,
Bill
then no
Belichick
one's-
would require.
right. But you think every GM thinks that? I think there's some GMs
but-
that think, oh, we'd take him. I'd
Who
pay him
would've
that.
thought-
me,
who
well,
would've
we can
thought
make him
Cam-
work. We
who
can
would've
make
thought
him
Cam
better.
Newton and Bill Belichick would have ever even set foot on the same field, like on the same team. Like nobody saw that happening. Why would I never would have thought
And
Belichick would
Cam
want
Newton's
Cam,
the
let
same
alone-
way. Bill Belichick needs to have a strong-minded quarterback, somebody that can deal with the media. Like the problem with Wentz right now is that he's allowing the media to dictate how he's acting way too much. And like these reports that are getting put out there, like he had an opportunity yesterday to come out and at the end of the year, you got Zach Ertz out there who has probably played his last game with Philly, who's really good friends, who didn't have a great year, comes out, has a press conference, does a stand-up, job, does what a respectable person would do. Wentz, after all this crap has been put out in the media, presumably by his agents, not even by him, but by his agents, has an opportunity to do the end of the year press conference and declines to do it. So I'm not sure what he's trying to get at, but I feel like he's just really soft at this
I was gonna
point.
say I think he's a little bit too emotionally sensitive to be in Philly.
He is.
Personally.
Nick, he is. He can't handle Philly, and he's definitely not going to be able to handle Bill Belichick in New England.
Well, one thing I thought of too, Belichick basically, they were looking to low. Well, I know a lot of it was Brady being willing to give up his money, but they're more of a low ball franchise. So I don't know if I see Belichick wanting to go and then get Wentz when he's already like, is he good
Right.
enough?
They
and
had
then
Brady
pay him-
on the cheap for
pay him
years.
top 10 quarterback
They
money.
pay cheap so because they can boast that they're a winning franchise. That's how they get people cheap.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, maybe I can win a Super Bowl if I go
Right.
cheap.
So I don't know that I see them trading for that contract when Wentz looks like his best years are maybe behind him. So.
Right. But to the other point about them getting people on the cheap, it hasn't been working for him because like Brady restructured his deal numerous times for them to get other guys, and they never got anything that good around him in his later years, and that's why he was probably just fed up with it and was like, I'm out of here.
Yep.
It's true.
They still have some salary cap issues in New England as well.
Everybody's got
Or
salary
the-
cap issues. this year.
Yeah, everybody does because of the cap kind of flattening out. Everyone was projecting it to go up, but Belichick even said this year, like, we suck because of COVID and because we've been trying to win for so many years that our cap, we kind of
Yeah,
need to get it under control.
I didn't like
again.
that though. To me, it was like you're scapegoating, saying like, "Oh, well, there's reasons and excuses." Like, just suck it up. You had a bad year. Don't make excuses because everybody's got to deal with salary cap. Everybody's got to deal with talent issues. Like I don't like that as a coach coming out publicly, especially from a guy who usually never says anything to media other than "We're on to Cincinnati." Like, I don't know.
Well, that's when they're winning, Juddy. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Clearly.
look, On the last thing on the Wentz thing is, as a Cowboys fan, do you think what happened with Wentz once they gave him this big deal, they gave him this big contract now, he came out the same time as Dak. They got drafted at the same time. Does this make the Cowboys a little gun shy? Even though Dak got hurt and we saw what we did with what the quarterbacks that we had. Now, granted, I think we would have been a little bit better if we actually had Dalton in all of our games, because he missed like 4 games with different issues. And we probably would have won 1 or 2 of those games, possibly with Dalton versus like Ben DiNucci or Garrett Gilbert. But do you think it makes them hesitate at all and be like, I don't know if I want to give them, look what Philly did. They gave Carson this big deal and now he's like going off the rails. Like, do we want a chance?
I think Dak's
giving Dak $40 million a year?
I think Dak's more talented, and I think he's not nearly as timid as Wentz is.
He's definitely not as I don't think the pressure and the media and stuff like that bothers him as much. And I mean, look, if there's anywhere there's a media swarm, Dallas, the Cowboys, I mean, you're always scrutinized. Everything is highly scrutinized. I mean, just is.
Another comment that I think is funny from our very own Greg Ferry. He says, Belichick has more dirt on Kraft than the New York Times, so he can't fire him.
That's true.
Hey, maybe he knows a little more about some other massage parlors that Kraft has been to.
I was gonna say, didn't you know that Belichick was actually he was a franchise owner of a like bunch of massage parlors. He's the owner, so he knows what's going on there. No, I think Dak. I've always thought, like, as a Philly fan, like, okay, so let me just say this before I talk about Dak. It's in the best interest of Philadelphia to figure it out with Wentz, for Doug Peterson, for Carson Wentz to figure it out, for him to play the way that he played 2017.
They say the
let me just say that.
Fractured, though.
Right. Well, somebody said that. Doug Peterson saying, I'm not really sure what that's all about. My relationship with him is good. Carson's not talking. But at the end of the day, it's the best situation for Philly, maybe not for Wentz, but for Philly to figure that out and to help. But with that being said, I've always felt like when Philly and Dallas played and they started talking about Dak versus Wentz, yada, 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 I always felt like Dak was more talented and that, like, we needed to have more on our defensive side to stop Dak than y'all needed to have on your defense to stop us. And that's kind of how I always looked at it.
Weapons too, though. Dallas always had more weapons than you guys.
He did. And that is a fair point. But it just seemed to me like
we'll give you Mason Rudolph. We'll give you Mason Rudolph for Jalen Hurts. Do you think, Dan? Do you think Jalen Hurts has the potential to be the guy for y'all?
Would you like him to be the guy?
I would need to see some greater development, but
is it worth it?
It's so unfair right now to say certain things because there's no talent out there with him.
All right, well, let me ask you this.
That's true, but what have you seen out there without some talent?
Yeah, without talent.
I've seen him
seems to buy into him more than with Wentz. They seem to click more.
Absolutely.
They seem to like that guy. Like, they
so what I'm saying, Dan, is if you, because I'm just putting it in your hands. If you were the GM, you're ready to move on from Wentz. You think that's done. Get him out of there. He needs a change of scenery, and the Philly needs better. Okay, you have Hurts as your quarterback. You've seen him. Are you wanting to draft a guy this year, or do you think we used the second round, or was it the late first round or late second round pick you guys used on Hurts?
Second round pick we got him.
Okay, you invested somewhat of a high pick on Hurts, and you took him. A later second round pick. You took him. He obviously was better than what you had. With minimal talent, he did some decent things. And from what you know of him as a prospect in college, do you think he deserves a shot as where we would say we don't need to draft a guy this year?
So the best way I can put this in perspective from what I've seen is I feel like Tua was a better college quarterback than Jalen, but I feel like Jalen's a better NFL quarterback than Tua from what I've seen so far.
Which is interesting because Tua was the pocket passing guy in college, and Jalen Hurts really never got to have that chance to be that guy. A little bit more at Oklahoma, but he always uses legs more. And now, yeah, you're right. Like,
that's what everybody's saying.
Jalen Hurts looks to have been a little more successful in his short period of time.
Right.
Coming out of the gates. And you would have thought Tua would have been more NFL rated. So that is interesting.
That's what everybody's saying too, is they're saying that like the one knock on Jalen Hurts was that he didn't throw that great of a ball. But now they're saying like, wow, he throws the ball better than they really expected
amazing.
in the NFL.
I don't think it was necessarily how he threw the ball. I think it was, can he get it to the right guy? Can he go bang, 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 this read, that read, this read? Yeah. Tua did that pretty well. Jalen Hurts was never in an offense where he needed to do that, and when he did, Tua came in and did it better, and so they were like, we're going with Tua. So I think Jalen just found a way to use his athleticism a little more in the system he was in, and throwing it down the field more. I don't think his arm was ever the problem. I think it was just like, can he read it? Can he read it from the pocket? Can he go through his progressions mentally the way that Tua could, or any good NFL quarterback did? And I just think, in a short period of time, we've talked about this a little bit with Lamar. In a short period of time, you can get away with using your athleticism and doing things. And then eventually, when teams say, we're taking that away, you just have to read the field. You have to go through your progressions. Just like Colin Kaepernick. He got away with it for a year and a half, and then he got found out. You get found out, and this is why I think because I didn't see Jalen Hurts as an NFL prospect, like being a legitimate NFL starter.
Right.
When I saw him for 4 games here, I'm like, he's doing better than I thought. But I do think he would get found out and wouldn't be.
He'd have to develop. Someone would have to develop him.
Yeah, I think for Hurts, what I've seen, like when I'm making this comparison, Tua looks to me like he's playing like safe and he's like Mason, like we talked about Mason Rudolph, a little timid, afraid to make the mistake. Jalen looks like he has
nothing to lose.
He's playing like, what do I have to lose, right? And so I think that's what's right now allowing his play to be elevated over what I've seen with Tua. That doesn't mean that I don't think that Tua might end up having the better career in the long run. We don't even know if Jalen's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL at any point beyond the games he played this year. But if he was to be the starter going into next year, I wouldn't be sitting here being like, man, we're going to really suck with him as a quarterback. I think that he would give us opportunities to win the game. He would be able to keep games close. And if he could develop, he could be a quarterback that you could have, and he could be a starter, in the future.
Do you think Jalen's a better passer than Lamar? Pure passer?
Yes. I also think he's a better passer than Wentz right now.
Well,
more accurate anyway.
I think Duck Hodges might be better than Wentz right now.
So
haven't seen the field all year.
But yeah, I think I've seen Jalen throw a ball like out patterns to the outside receivers. I've seen him, really look pretty good at throwing. I still have some questions about Lamar. But Lamar's successful at what he does. So, you can't really hate on him too much.
He's definitely the best running quarterback, I think, like as far as using his ability to run.
Yeah, look, I think Lamar will be if they keep Brent Roman as the OC and they keep Harbaugh as the coach, while that core of good offensive line play, good head coach, good offensive coordinator, and they are committed to, we are going to run the ball a lot to our running backs with the read option, and we're going to let Lamar continue to run. We're not going to put it and make Lamar throw it 30 times. If they continue with that, Lamar will continue to be a good quarterback. Yeah. I just think when that breaks up, when that head coach that is committed to that, and that system with Greg Roman, one of those two or both of those things breaks up, which eventually, maybe it won't. Maybe they'll keep Harbaugh for 10 years, 12 years with Lamar, and they're probably not going to keep Greg Roman that long, but whoever they bring in, that's why I think there's like a limited.
Yeah.
You also just that style of play doesn't last as long, man. They're running it so much doesn't last as long.
Right, and then he has to stay healthy. That's the second part. He has to stay healthy running it that much.
As we're getting ready to kind of wrap it up here, we've been on for about an hour. I did want to ask you guys: do you guys think that the nature of how football is played right now with the quarterbacks and the mobile quarterback? Do you think that there will ever be a time where it will kind of be cyclical, where it will come back to pocket passing being more prevalent than running?
See, I don't like that question. It still is pocket passing.
Right, it's a mix.
But we have a couple quarterbacks. We have like Lamar who's come in and they're doing this, but it's not like we've never seen it. We've seen it with Vic.
Even like Josh Allen, he has mobility, but he stays in the pocket and he runs if he has to.
Right. You could say that there are more quarterbacks who are like doing things like Steve Young than there were before, but I don't think there's been a systematic change where there's less pocket passing happening. I really don't believe that.
Right. Even Mahomes stays in the pocket unless he has to get out.
Yeah.
Guess what I mean is more of like the statuesque like pocket passer, like the Peyton
Manning,
a
Tom Brady, Drew Brees,
the Ben Roethlisberger. Ben was never a runner. Like Phillip Rivers was never a runner. Like
I still think you can win. I still think you can win that way, and I don't know if it'll ever.
I think you can win that way too. I just don't know if
I
it'll ever
think
get
the
back
kids coming out in football are going to be. I think you're seeing more quarterbacks in college and stuff like that just have a little bit more mobility in general. So they're not going to just stand there. They're going to be able to escape and look like they're mobile. But there's a difference between a quarterback with mobility and a running quarterback.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
To me, there's only two guys that the system is catered to their mobility, and that's Kyler Murray and Lamar
Jackson. Yep.
That are high-end quarterbacks. Other than that, Josh Allen, yeah, he's mobile, and so is Mahomes.
Right.
But they don't run the read option very much.
Right.
They don't look to use his legs. They only do it when they have to.
Same thing Washington did with RG3. That was that system that didn't work very long.
Quarterbacks are coming out now more athletic and maybe a little slighter, a little skinnier, and a little bit more and a little faster as a result of that, and just more athletic because of kind of the way they're being groomed to do that now.
Yeah. I wonder if
probably because of the college system that they played.
Yeah, I always wondered why Seattle didn't kind of do more of that, because I always thought Russell could have been a good mobile quarterback, more so like
he's great in the pocket.
But he's such a good passer, and he uses his legs in a defensive way to make plays happen as opposed to running for yards.
Right, runs the throw.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, boys, I'm really excited about the playoffs.
It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be fun.
The more I talk about it and think about it, I'm just like I'm ready for it to be here already. And
here we go.
Yeah, I mean, as a guy who doesn't have his team in there, it's always a little bit of a bummer, but it's also nice. You can watch stress-free and just enjoy the games.
It is, dude. I agree.
Dude, whenever my team, I've had 2 straight years of January depression because my team hasn't been in it. There's nothing like NFL. Your team's in playoff games, man. There's nothing like it. I want it every year. I want the stress. I mean, the stress and the pain, man. That's part of the fun of being a fan. You want that, man. You live it because that makes the victories that much sweeter, man. So
after the first drive, when Juddy sends us to Marco Polo, and he's like, "We're done. This is over. We're done." I just can't wait for it.
They need to sit Ben. Ben's done.
I would never. I would never suggest that.
He can't throw it. He can't throw it past 10 yards.
I have to be the voice of reason.
Randy Finkner. That's all we hear. Finkner needs to go.
I heard another one. People on Twitter, listen, you guys are going to get a kick out of this. I heard another name for him. People are calling him Randy Finkner.
I knew it. I knew that. I heard that one. Yeah, Randy Finkner.
That's wrong.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's going to be good, though. We'll have a lot of
He's going to lead you guys to a Super Bowl, man. Come on now.
Hey, you know what Juddy was saying? He was like, what if Tomlin catches COVID like
Randy Finkner's the head coach?
He was like, Randy Finkner better not be the interim head coach, man. We're going nowhere.
I'd take Danny Smith or Keith Butler over them all day.
Danny Smith wouldn't even be able to put a game plan together. He'd have 95 pieces of Big Red in his gum, dude.
Just chewing on it. He was
the Eagles special teams coach back in like the late 90s, man. He always had that big old
Harbaugh was that Eagles special teams.
Hey, let's talk about this real quick. I sent that text out to you all today, but I want to talk about real quick the Andy Reid coaching tree. Let's give it some love. He has John Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, Matt Nagy, Sean Payton, Frank Reich, Ron Rivera. All of them were former coaches that either coached under Andy or that were former Eagles coaches that are in the playoffs right now. Most of them
all in the playoffs, That's pretty impressive.
Most of them had coached under Andy with the exception of Frank Reich.
When's the last time the Cowboys and the Eagles both missed the playoffs in the same season?
It's been a few years.
We're just a model of consistency as teams, so we're normally
makes me think the Eagles should have never let go of old Big Red.
I
mean, they got a Super Bowl after he left, so
they did. But who's to say they wouldn't have got one if they would have stuck with him?
Right.
That's a hard one to figure out.
Well,
hey, look, now that we've seen what Wentz has become, if he doesn't get hurt and Foles comes in, they definitely don't win it. Nah, I'm just kidding.
We don't know.
We don't know
because Wentz has been.
But then he came back the next year, whatever, made the playoffs and he couldn't get it done. So
somebody said the same thing though about when the coaching tree discussion. They were like, with how long Mike Tomlin's been in Pittsburgh, it's like they were wondering why he doesn't have a coaching tree of like guys that have like kind of branched off. But to me, he's had. I mean, we always hire from within, and we don't go get like anybody crazy.
Todd Haley.
Yeah, that was the only time we kind of like have had the same guys. Like all the guys that are here have been here. Like
Dick LeBeau for a long time.
We had Dick LeBeau for so long, and then we had Arians. Yeah, you can count Arians, but he was already in the system.
But he was on another tree before he came.
He was the QB coach before Tomlin got there. He just became our O coordinator because Ken Wisenhunt got mad that he didn't get the Steelers job, which I'm glad he didn't. I think Ken Wisenhunt would have probably flamed out after a few years with us, and we probably wouldn't have won the Super Bowls we did.
Yeah, what's that guy doing now?
Yeah, I don't know.
He's not coaching in the NFL from what I know. He might be coaching as a quarterback coach somewhere, I think. Maybe last time I saw.
Too devastated to lose to us in the Super Bowl when he was with Arizona, but he did pretty well in Arizona there for a few years. Well, whatever. I think we're gonna wrap it up. It's getting kind of late here, but again, we are gonna be live Saturday at 12. So join us there for.
Check it out, boys.
Check us out 12 o'clock Saturday.
Gonna be great. We're gonna promote the crap out of that. But yeah, that'll wrap up the show for now. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. See you guys on Saturday.